this letter here sounds a bit much more personal. So, dear Building Better Leaders, I work in a non-profit organization that does deep, meaningful work. We support vulnerable communities through education and advocacy. I joined because I believe in the mission. I still do, but lately, I feel like I'm running on empty. My role involves leading a small but passionate team. Everyone's stretched thin, wearing multiple hats and emotionally invested in the outcomes. Because of that, I find myself constantly holding space for their stress, their overwhelm, their grief when things don't go as planned. I check in often, encourage them, and try to create a psychologically safe space. But in doing that, I've quietly sidelined my own well-being. I rarely share that I'm struggling because I feel like I must stay strong for everyone else. There's always another crisis, another report, another donor to appease. The hardest part is this. In a non-profit world, passion is the fuel, but also the trap. Saying no feels like letting someone down. Taking a break feels like I'm not doing enough. So how do I keep leading with passion without losing myself to the emotional weight of the work? How do I care without carrying it all?
Sounds very familiar. Yeah, very
Would you
familiar.
want to be able to
Mm,
provide some pointers for this person first to consider?
yeah. Look, when you were reading the letter, it reminded me of I think many years back, a few years back, when I was a principal and I attended this leadership course, and it was talking about compassionate leadership, and we had to do this questionnaire to see where we are in terms of our compassion for others and compassion for self. And when after that we were given the results, and I remembered I was shocked because compassion for others for me was very high, and the one that was very, very low for me is self-compassion.
Wow.
Compassion for self. So that's why I said this is, and this letter reminded me of that. And I remembered that a number of us in the group actually had very low reading for self-compassion. And I remember the trainer actually had to spend some time, he didn't intend to, but he had to spend some time just walking us through on this thing about self-compassion, finding out from us what about self-compassion that we kind of resist in that sense. And it comes again with self-care, because many of us felt that as leaders, we should be taking care of others, that we forget about ourselves. And he said, the first person you should take care of yourself, because we always think that self-care is selfish because it's about me first, right? And recently I remember I had this conversation with someone, and we talk about self-care, and self-care is actually about me too, not me first. Me too. You are important. My team is important. The people I'm taking care of are important. Me too am important. Yeah, so that kind of shifts the way we look at, self-compassion and self-care. So I think that's why when this letter writer, it's like as if she's writing about many of us, and especially those who are working in, I think she's working in a non-profit
Yeah,
organization,
yeah.
in self-help groups, and this is quite common because they are very passionate people. They care about others, and they are there for others, nurturing, supporting. And in that process, sometimes there is no receiving because we're
Yeah.
always giving, because we feel that, I feel guilty of receiving. I feel guilty of taking time off for myself because
Yeah.
we always think about me first. But now, if it's me too, then by all means. So, yeah, that was the first sense I get, that you need to protect, it is important for us to also protect our own energy,
Yeah. Agree.
um, to have this thing called emotional boundaries, lah, to establish some form of emotional boundaries. That it's okay to say no sometimes. That it is okay, not to do everything. Um, and sometimes we feel that people need us, but actually most of the time, we need others as well. So that was the first thing that comes to my mind when you read the letter, was like, oh wow, welcome. You are not alone. Many of us, are with you on this. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think I also once worked in a non-profit before, uh, part-time. I was serving there for quite a while, about 10 years. Um, I think there's a double-edged sword on this whole thing called purpose, right? So,
Yeah.
so purpose is clearly, of course, a very powerful motivator, but it also can be like a trap as well, right?
Yeah.
Where there's this unspoken culture of non-profit, or at least where I was previously, that sacrifice is necessary to create real impact, even though it is not said, right? But there's this thing about sacrifice. But if I don't
Mm.
sacrifice, then there's no real impact in this case. So there's this thought about like we need to bleed to prove our commitment in this case. Now I do not literally bleed, but you need to sacrifice in this case, right? In order for us to show
Mm.
commitment in this case. So I think then that is where there is, like you said, there's no emotional boundary because we feel guilty when we are not sacrificing in this case. We feel guilty when we are not resting, or when we are resting in this case, right? We feel guilty for saying no, or even not wanting to help in this case. So I think
Mm.
that is something which I can clearly resonate with this person as well. I think one thing that the letter writer can consider, besides the reframe of what you said just now, that yes, we need to take care of all the other people, but me too, right? In this case, right? So, but besides that, I would also like to add on for this person to reframe, or at least rethink again what is enough, right? So, because compared to, for example, a for-profit organization, it's pretty clear. There are a lot of clear milestones and so on, right? There is very definitive goals in this case. But usually for non-profit, it's ongoing. It is almost like,
Mm.
so so in order for one to be able to know what is enough, sometimes it's really about putting in certain measurable milestones as well, so
Yeah.
that it is sustainable over time. It can't be
Mm.
just infinite in this case, right? Yes,
Yeah.
I mean the cost is infinite for sure, but I think this is where, but we are humans, we cannot be infinite, so we need to be able to also understand what our boundaries. So in order for the mission to come across as more sustainable, sometimes it's really about rethinking what is enough by putting in certain measurable milestones, so that at
Mm.
least when we kind of like, oh, achieve that, we will celebrate in this case. But of course, there's a
Yes.
bigger hill to climb, but at least we managed to so-called overcome this hill. This is something
Mm.
which I also like the letter writer to consider about rethinking that the mission by having clear
Mm.
milestones.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you on that. In fact, one of the things that when I was listening to you, is that I think when we talk about we work with in a non-profit organization, that there's no measurable thing. They always talk about impact.
Yeah,
What's
yeah,
the impact I make, right?
yeah.
So it's actually necessary to celebrate the small wins. And when I think to maintain that passion is to celebrate small wins.
Yeah,
It's not about the big because there's going to be a journey.
yeah.
When you work in a non-profit organization, it's a journey itself. So you need to learn to celebrate small wins, regularly reflecting what's the positive impact that you already have made, with the community that you're working with. Because sometimes when you celebrate your small successes, right, it helps to reinforce your own purpose without becoming a bit overwhelmed. And I think it's also important for us. I mean, I've also, like yourself, I've worked in non-profit self-help groups, and it's very important, especially if you work as volunteers also,
Yeah.
to remind ourselves of the meaningful difference that we are making. It's not just about giving, but being able to. I think we need to be able to differentiate between caring deeply and taking on the others. Caring deeply is good, but when we take on others' emotional burdens completely without knowing how to detach or dissociate ourselves from there, that's when we feel overwhelmed, because we feel that we are doing so much and not seeing much results. Because like I said, it's a journey. So if we're able to just reflect on, you know, what we are here for, the motivation. Like you said, sometimes purpose can be a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
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 But I think most importantly is to reconnect with the core reason that you are there. Why did you do this? Because for me, okay, this is from personal experience. Sometimes when we do that, we connect with your core reason, you find that it kind of shifts you back on track. On even if you're facing some challenging time, you're feeling overwhelmed, you kind of look at, okay, I think I need to celebrate this. This is one small victory. Okay, celebrate it. At least I've got this done. And like you say, it's a milestone. You need to
Yeah.
create that
Yeah.
milestone for yourselves. I think that's very, it's going to be quite useful and very helpful for us. What some people do is they have reflection moments. For me, I call it decompression.
Okay.
I will always have a decompression moments. Whether when I come back from doing some voluntary work, because I work with people a lot. Right now I do coaching and all. So sometimes when you work with people, especially if they share with you some emotional burdens of themselves, and if we are not careful, we don't have that boundary, we tend to absorb some of
Yeah.
this energy as well. So we
Agreed.
need to have some decompression time where we set aside our own time for reflection and our own I call it self-renewal. Decompression is more like self-renewal, activities. It can be anything. Some people, they do mindfulness. For some people, they call it healing. They
Yeah.
just sit for 5 minutes and just kind of reflect through things I'm grateful for today, something like that, or things I could have done differently. And I know of people who actually does journaling. I do journaling. And I just need to unload, all these things, because it's, when you pour water into a cup, after a
Yeah.
while it's full. You need to
Yes.
empty that cup. So
Yes.
for
Agree.
me, journaling is emptying that cup and just writing down, and I don't even think, I just write it down. And the next day when I read through the journal, I say, hey, actually not bad, huh? I read some beautiful things, when when I'm overwhelmed, I do write some beautiful things over here, and I say, oh, what can I learn? That kind of thing. So, yeah, those are things that the letter writer could consider doing.
Okay.
Find your own means of decompressing.
Very good.
Yeah, find your own times also where you work best at decompressing it, because we do need to unload
Yeah.
ourselves before we take on the full load again.
I like the
Yeah.
cup analogy. Yeah, that I'm also reminded right now on another letter C, car analogy. Someone once told me before that imagine if you only have one car for the rest of your life, and you're gonna take care of this car right up to the end. You only have one car, you cannot change cars, right? So if you only have one, then clearly it's going to be for the long term. So then you gotta send it for maintenance, you gotta service it. You cannot like drive in 24/7. You can't do that. You need to learn how to and all these things, right? So imagine this car is your body, right? And you only have one body now
Mm.
in this case, right? And I think it takes it punishes the body, especially when we do a lot of people work in this case. Like you say, when you deal
Yes.
with people, there are a lot of emotion and so on. It's not only about the body, but the whole entire well-being of that person, right? So I think it's really important to really take care, like you say, to learn to have decompression time, self-healing, learn to ask for help as well. So
Mm.
it's not really about this whole self-righteous thing where or the savior mentality that I'm the only one who's called to do this, so I need to do everything myself. So I think
Yeah.
that's really important not to fall into that trap. I need to carry this burden, but instead of saying like we need to carry this burden together, right? When let's
Yeah.
say you were serving in a particular ministry or non-profit in this case, I think it's also important that this letter writer to consider that it's not only about me, it's about we, right? How can we do
Yeah.
this together in this case?
Yeah. Yeah.
And like you say, rest, take some breaks, decompress, create everyday boundaries also will help. Something simple
Mm.
like no emails after 7 p.m. or something like that. But whatever it is, you think of it like what you say, you know, uh, uh, from an analogy perspective, like a cup or like a car. You only have one car. What would you do to take care of this car so that this car will take you all the way, to the end in this case? So, but we only have one body. So what do we do, right? We have to learn how to manage our energies as well. So I think these are some of the things that the letter writer can consider. Before we finish this letter, I think it's also important that this letter writer understand that, because I will assume this person is a leader of sorts, leading small passion. Yeah, this person is a leader, and lucky or not, the people would look up to you. So we need to model this. So if we have this mentality of we need to bleed in order for us to show, real impact, we need to bleed in order to show commitment. That is not helpful, because then you will also duplicate, this kind of thinking and culture. Then everyone also will be that. Then everyone also will be burnt out as well. So as leaders, we need to learn how to model that as well. Be very careful with how we show up. Anything else to add on before we close?
Yeah, one last one, because I like the part when you say that we must also learn to have realize the we. It's a we, it's not an I thing.
Yeah.
Especially when you're working, in this kind of community. And I think having a support system is very important. Having a supportive community, a support system. Sometimes when you share experiences and your advice, right, it can provide some form of emotional relief for you, or even practical solutions that sometimes it kind of escape us, especially if we working or doing it alone. So I would say to the letter writer, build a network, colleagues or friends or mentors where you can share this emotional weight. I mean, don't hesitate, seek support, or delegate, even delegate tasks if you need to. Just remember, we don't know everything, and we don't need to shoulder everything. Share, because sometimes when we have regular check-ins with our fellow colleagues, or even people who are leading other organizations like yourself, they can be like a source of encouragement for us as well, because they can give us different perspective. We can share strategies, and this can help us to prevent our own emotional overload. So I think when you are in a leadership position, and especially when you are in a work where you give a lot, support system can be very useful for us as well. So build that network, and be a part of a supportive community. Yeah, so
Okay.
that's what I just want to encourage the letter writer to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's what we're telling the letter writer. First of all, learn how to reframe that. Yes, of course, you're here to help, to care for others, but also remember that it's also you need to care for yourself as well. So you need to have,
Mm,
as you care, then comma, me too. You need to care, you take care of yourself as well, right?
yeah.
So you need to reframe that have that mindset. Second thing is also to rethink again about this whole thing about impact, right? Because impact is infinite. It's a long game. It's a journey, like you said. But it's also important then to be able to celebrate the small wins, to break it down to measurable milestones, so that we can celebrate. We can look back again and say, hey, I did quite an okay job here, because it's a long game, right? In this case, and we also talk about some practical steps. If you imagine yourself as just you only have one body, or you have one car, in this case one vehicle to get there. There are some practical steps, like for example, learn to have decompression time, self-renewal, learn to build support system around you, to learn to
Mhm.
ask for help. So it's just not I, but we can do this together. Learn how to create very healthy emotional boundaries.
Yeah.
Learn to take rest, learn to journal and so on. So we talk about all those things,
Yeah.
and I think ultimately also to learn how to reconnect back with your core reason, your why. Why are you actually doing this in this case? So I think these are some of the practical
Yes.
steps, and hopefully these pointers will be able to help